In your course resources, there is a folder on the literature review. I posted a lot of videos to look at, but I kind of wanted to include um, this little lecture about um, the purpose of a literature review in relationship to, for example, term papers or your research project that you will be conducting either in 550, 541, or 642. Okay, because the literature review is really dependent in terms of the purpose. It's dependent on what the course assignment is. Okay, so let's talk about purpose of a literature review. So the literature review is to improve students' understanding of a specific topic. Oftentimes, you're already working in the field, you understand social work practice, you understand certain social problems, but reviewing the literature is really to help students as well as professionals understand the specific topic even more so. It's also when you conduct a literature review, it's to demonstrate your knowledge about the specific topic. It's to affirm what you already know or to provide evidence based to what you already know from practice. Okay. It also brings you to update to, it also brings you up to date on previous or current research that has been conducted on a specific topic. Again, you want to be up to date because as social workers, our practice is based on evidence base, right? So, all right. So that's the purpose of conducting a literature or conducting a review of the literature. Okay, so what is a literature review? It is part of a research proposal, and it's also, it could be a standalone in terms of a term paper. The literature review is not a statement of your stance or position about a specific topic. It's to be a little bit broader than that. So again, literature review is not biased. It is based on what we consider the literature, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. All right, again, so the purpose of the literature review is to be a whole lot broader than a statement of your stance, your position, your bias about a specific topic. So again, the purpose of, I'm just going into a little bit more detail, is the purpose of reviewing the literature is to critically analyze a segment of a published body of knowledge through summarizing, comparing previous research, or comparing theoretical articles. Again, the literature, by definition, is a body of knowledge, not one article, okay? So, I keep going in the different direction here. The major, so the literature, when we talk about a body of knowledge, it's major published, peer-reviewed work about a specific and narrow topic. So usually literature or peer-reviewed articles are about the findings from previous research conducted. It's pivotal or groundbreaking research that has been conducted and has been published. Again, peer-reviewed journal articles. Okay. The review is a snapshot of the major concepts, the major points, or outcomes in the literature. Okay, so by definition, a snapshot of the major concepts, points, or outcomes in the body of knowledge that's published. So it's also a snapshot of the relationship of major concepts, points, and outcomes. They are not a detailed description of the articles. Usually detailed description of articles, it's an annotative bibliography, or it could be a meta-analysis type of document. And that's not what you're doing in terms of a literature review. In organizing the literature review, you can do it chronologically. You can write about, for example, a theory or the advancement of theory. So what's the history? How did the theory evolve? Your literature review could also be organized in terms of your questions, or it could be organized geographically. For example, if you're looking at the opioid problem, geographically, is it in terms of here in West Virginia? Could you do it geographically? You could compare it in terms of what the opioid problem is here in Appalachian region versus further up north, say in Vermont. Okay, so the process of conducting a literature review or review of the literature and then writing it up, we talked about this earlier. You're going to be conducting a search and you're going to be collecting information. You're scanning and selecting relevant literature, okay, and then reading them and analyzing the information in those peer-reviewed journal articles or in textbooks, okay? You want to arrange the literature into themes, outlining the themes and listing sources of articles or listing the sources, which are the articles, according to the themes. And that's why I provided you all with the worksheet to help organize that information. And then working through the outline, or as I mentioned before, through a mind map that you create. So going back to the purpose, the literature review is establishing your understanding of previous research related to the specific narrow topic to be able to move forward in terms of present or future research that you want to conduct. Again, this is a literature review that you would be doing for your research class, all right? But again, when you write your literature review, it is a demonstration of your ability to articulate your understanding of the current, up-to-date information about a specific and narrow topic. So organizing the literature review, you're going to have an introduction, all right, giving the reader an idea about what the paper will cover. So you would be defining and identifying the topic to provide appropriate context for reviewing the literature. Okay, you're pointing out overall trends, for example, in terms of what has been published. You can identify conflicting theories, gaps in research, contradictions in research studies. All right, and then also you could be organizing the literature review in terms of establishing the reasons for reviewing the literature, explaining the criteria for use that was used when you analyzed the literature and organizing it, and explaining certain literature that was or was not included. In other words, what were your boundaries? How did you set the criteria for what articles you read or not have read? So the body of the literature review would include descriptions of prior studies or research projects. And when you describe previous studies, you want to write it in past tense because the study was already conducted. Okay, so that's why it has to be written in past tense. You want to, I'll skip that. The other thing that you want to include in the body of your literature review is to focus on the rationale behind what you're writing. Use major themes to begin your paragraphs. Remember, I mentioned how each paragraph should only have one major theme, and then briefly clarify the statement with examples or with supporting evidence from the literature. And when I say supporting evidence from the literature, this is where you provide citations, okay? So the literature review is not a detailed description about the study, okay? So if I conducted a study, I published it, you're not going to repeat what I wrote in my article. That is not a literature review. The literature review will highlight what I found to support what you've written. And if the reader wants to find out more detailed information about my study, for example, then they would read my article. They shouldn't have to read it in yours, okay? Because that's not what a literature review is. Okay. In terms of transitions from paragraph to paragraph, show connections between the ideas from the different studies, demonstrate similarities as well as differences between the studies, all right, or articles, or if there's contradicting information. Okay. In terms of the conclusion for your literature review, you do want to evaluate the current state of the art from the body of knowledge that you reviewed. Provide some insight in terms of the relationship between the central topic of your literature review and then how it's relevant to social work practice. All right. You also want to point out relative methodology. Again, if you're writing a literature review for your research class, you do want to point out relevant methodological issues that may affect findings, pointing out limitations of their study, and then making suggestions in terms of future research to focus on. Again, that's for a your research class. So that's, I have more information. That's basically all I have in terms of the literature review. I hope it helps. Again, please make sure that you review all of the materials that I provided in the literature review resource folder to help you in terms of understanding what is expected in your literature review when you write your term paper. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to send me a message in the course messages in Blackboard for our course.